Walking through the twilight, I'm on my way home. I left 3 days ago, but no one seems to know I'm gone. Home is where the hatred is. Home is filled with pain, and it might not be such a bad idea if I never went home again. Stand as far away from me as you can and ask me why. Hang on to your rosary beads, close your eyes to watch me die. You keep saying, kick it, quit it, God, but did you ever try to turn your sick soul inside out so that the world can watch you die? KBLA Talk 1580. Time to go on a poetry journey for our deep dive today. Looking forward. I'm hesitant a little bit because I have 2 or 3 different bios sitting in front of me for my next guest. I have the ones written by other people that are just the facts, and the ones written by her, which you may find more engaging but possibly more confusing. Not sure which way to go with. Let's go to KimShuck.com. It says Kim Shuck embraces the fool and jester qualities of being a modern poet and artist. She is a devotee of San Francisco, whose hills she wanders nearly always on foot. Her maternal grandparents met at the Polish Hall on Shotwell, and she spent many hours with her mother and grandmother wandering the Mission Street Miracle Mile, taking books out of the Mission Branch Library and watching aquarium fish on the ground floor of what used to be Hales. She firmly believes in carrying a bubble wand, keys, pen and notebook, and cat's cradle string at all times. It also says she's widely published in journals, anthologies, and a couple solo books. She enjoys volunteering at elementary schools in San Francisco. And did we mention she was the poet laureate of San Francisco? Kim Shuck, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm like, how do I introduce this woman? I have, 4 different bios. I feel like maybe I should do another introduction, but maybe I will as we go along. I'm so glad to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's good because I know you have many of the same temporal moments in San Francisco as I do. So,
no doubt. I'm from the Bay, as you well know, and I should start out by saying thank you. Thank you for performing at the tribute that we did to my mom. It was very much in the spirit, that we were hoping the artistic and political and humorous spirit that we were hoping would manifest at that thing.
There's been more than one event that your mom and I were sitting next to each other, just sort of laughing at the absurdity of life together. So it was a great pleasure to be able to honor her, and I thank you.
So me and my brothers and sisters joke about, poetry. It's probably one of the least lucrative career paths you could ever choose, right? It's not, if there's an opposite of corporate, it's probably poet.
Yeah.
What drew you to, and also, I mean, I can tell you from firsthand observation that it's also a ton of work. It's not like, oh, this is a low-paid job where I can lounge around all the time. I mean, to be a good poet or a great poet, it's just a lot of work, a lot of practice. What made you want to become a poet?
I didn't want to become a poet. There was really no option. In fact, there was a moment where I went out to lunch with my parents and went, okay, Mom, Dad, I've got to talk to you about this. I'm a poet. And
You had the coming out conversation as a poet.
I absolutely did. And because we basically live in the Castro mission zone there, we were in the Castro, and the waiter was laughing the whole time because it really was like coming out to your parents, with all the same responses. Like, I'm just worried for you. How is this going to be socially? This is your fault. Nothing like that was ever on my side of the family. You know, that's no, but I was very lucky in life in that my first art teacher was Ruth Asawa, and my first poetry teacher was Carol Lee Sanchez.
Wow.
And so it seemed remotely possible that one could actually do that and pull off living. I think I'm not sure I'm ever going to get awards for being a great mom, but you know, I've managed to do this.
Does anyone get awards for that? I'm just curious. I don't
know. I mean, I think my sister-in-law implies that she gets them, but I don't.
Maybe she does. I don't know. I mean, and I guess that would also depend on how you define being a great mom, because I know a lot of people always comment about my mom's mothering style and, you know, as if like, you know, there should be something wrong with us being raised that way. But, you know, it just depends on what your definition of great is and what you're trying to teach as a mom, I guess.
I guess. Yeah, I guess. I mean, my understanding of I was too young to watch your mom parent.
Yeah.
I'm I sort of end up somewhere in the middle of you guys, age-wise. Yeah. And not too distant from you, actually. And so I didn't get to watch that. What I saw instead was somebody who was relentlessly happy to caretake folks in all kinds of ways. So, like, the thing that first drew me to your mom actually was something my great-grandmother always said. She always had a pot of beans going on the stove. And if you asked her why, and this is a woman who's very, very poor, she would say, because there are a lot of kids around and kids is hungry and beans is cheap. And I got that vibe off your mother really early on. So just the willingness to participate as a community member, and it felt like a job where you could still be a community member. And as the 60s and then the 70s retreated in our rearview mirror and some of that impulse diminished, it felt like being a poet was a job you could do where, you know, it was vaguely less weird if you wanted to go do stealth mathematics with kids in San Francisco Unified, or if you wanted to be supportive of all kinds of groups of people in whatever struggle they were doing. Because for me, growing up when I did and where I did and surrounded by the poets I was surrounded by, there were the guys who were a little self-referenced, and then there were all these women who were doing this work that was rooted in social justice, rooted in maintaining identities, that sort of trope that says that if you are come from cultural difference, the goal is to melt and be part of the whole thing. And that wasn't the agenda with the poets that I really respected. And so that was the gig, right? Sort of activist. This is what activists do when they're not marching. You know?
Yeah. Love that. So you also do a lot of other things. I mean, you're a poet, and obviously you're an accomplished one. You've got tons of books out, Poet Laureate, National Laureate Fellowship from the Academy of American Poets, Penn Oakland Censorship Award. You mentioned activism, but you actually studied, you have a master's, MFA, master's in art, and do beadwork and weavings. And I want to talk about that and how it plays into, the ancestral piece. I mean, we're firmly planted in who we are and as activists, as women. And moms or whatever in this modern world. But there's another piece of the Sankofa part, and it seems like you manage that in a very unique way. I want to look at that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Are you looking for a tax preparation firm that understands the unique financial challenges of African American business owners? Then look no more. Wealth Management Financial Advisors can prepare and file your individual and business taxes. They're committed to providing their clients with the best possible service. See how they make the greatest impact on your taxes. Find them at wealthmanagementlb.com or call them at 562-427-8877. That's 562-427-8877.
The Los Angeles Urban League helps African American and others in underserved communities achieve true social parity, economic self-reliance, and civil rights. For over 100 years, Los Angeles Urban League has ensured our communities have access to careers with living wages, opportunities to start and grow businesses, and clear pathways to personal and professional growth. Programs like BizCamp, Construction Career Academy, Bob Business Ready, and B-Warp. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program are examples of the ongoing events designed to make our centennial mission to rebuild Black Wall Street right here in LA a reality. To sign up for our newsletter or to support the Los Angeles Urban League with your time, talent, and donations, visit laul.org. That's laul.org. The Los Angeles Urban League is a proud sponsor of Urban Family Focus, Saturdays at 7 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
My car really needs a wash.
The $20 McGuire's bundle includes Gold Class Car Wash for a showroom shine.
Get in zone.
And what about my tires?
Just spray the included Hot Shine tire coating and you're all set.
Get in zone.
The inside is not great.
No problem. The quick interior detailer in the bundle can help with that too.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
She's so smooth. So I'm interrupting my own shower to remind you to treat your skin like the queen she is with Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash, packed with Olay's highest level of vitamin B3 complex. It's so moisturizing that it will give you visibly smoother, head-turning skin in just 14 days. People wondering, how'd she get so smooth? Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash. Also, try Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
We're talking with poet, artist, Kim Shuck. Before I get into all the questions I outlined before the break, I got to ask you, what is the bubble wand for?
I don't know. I think soap bubbles are a unifying notion. It will always make a child smile, for example.
Yeah, they make me smile too. So, BA in art and MFA in textiles from my alma mater, San Francisco State University. How does that, talk to me about how that all is working for you as a poet and artist and that connection with the ancestral piece?
Well, just off the top, it's sort of a different set of taste buds for the same behavior, right? So, they're the words, they're the beads, they're the threads, and all of the artwork that I do, poetry included, is poetry of construction, right? So you put all the little pieces together and see what happens. So for me, it's very much the same behavior. So there's no distance between the two things. But also, both the Polish and the Native American sides of my family have really strong textile traditions. And pretty much everybody in the family was kind of a no idle hands sort of chick, so we were all doing things all the time. And spent a lot of time with grandparents as a kid and learned those things. And I don't know. Then too, the whole Ruth Asawa piece where she was very much into knotless netting and textile activities at various points. And it just reflected the environment around me. It's the way I was taught to tell stories, both in poem and beads and thread. So that's what the cat's cradle string's for too. It's all the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, we don't think of it that way, but I guess I received that because that's how I was raised around poets and artists that were all kind of the feeding each other creatively with their work.
Right. Yeah. I was asked in art school, in the first year of art school, what would it be like if everything you wore and ate was made by hand by somebody you knew? And I thought, oh, you mean like childhood? Like being a kid in the 60s in San Francisco, like that? Is that what you're talking about? Because, that was it. Everybody was sort of experimenting with reconnecting with the things around them. When I was little, I saw that. It made sense to me. I still kind of do it, So people want to attribute these various behaviors of mine to one or the other of my major backgrounds, but really the main background is the city, San Francisco. I'm a logical production from this place at that time. I mean, we all made different choices, but the aesthetics, the perspective on morality, all of that is very much what we were told. Now, I'm not sure that all of our parents always really believed it, because some of that faded away as time went on. But I took very seriously a lot of the lessons that they said, listening to what they said, not necessarily watching all of the stuff they did. And I've firmly believed in my equity as a woman and a mixed race woman and all of those things. And I've just sort of behaved as if that remains true, even though I'm aware of where that falls apart a bit. I got the MFA not because I thought there was anybody in academia, particularly in the art world, who could tell me anything about being a better indigenous beadworker or basket maker. I got the MFA because at one point, in order to get into the collections of California basketry, because so many California tribes aren't recognized federally, which is a huge can of worms I don't want to get into, but there's a legal definition of being indigenous, and I have a card and a lot of people don't. And so since I had the card, the one driver's license I didn't have to go motor around in these collections was an advanced degree. So I got the MFA so that I could get my friends in to go see their grandparents' work.
Wow.
And that's really true.
That's so ironic.
That was an act of activism. Yeah.
That's very ironic. And when you talk about that, I mean, as a member of the nation, the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, and we talk a lot in our culture about, erasure of people of color, Black people particularly. I talk about that a lot. It's a huge problem for our country. But when you look at sort of popular culture imagery or mainstream America, indigenous people may be the most erased of all. How do you take that on?
Oh, well, I mean, you've met me.
Yes.
So I'm, we're laughing because I look white.
Well, that's not really why I was laughing. I was laughing because you are so kind of fearless and upfront with, from what I can tell, with most everything.
Oh, okay. Well, I was laughing because I look white.
Okay.
which comes up a lot. And it's interesting because the family is actually, the Cherokee side of the family is actually Black and Native as well as Euro-American. So I'm really a mix. The is not, you have to approach the erasure point not as one group of people or another. It's a systemic problem, and it involves, it touches on what I was saying earlier, which is you can be whatever you are as long as you don't behave in a way that's different from the dominant culture. You know what I mean? So the whole erasure thing works on a number of levels. If you toe various lines, you can almost be who you are. And I mean, it leaks its way into all kinds of cultural contexts. I will spill the tea on the Cherokee Nation, which isn't really a secret anymore, which is that, you know, we're all pretty much, if you're for real Cherokee, if you're enrollable Cherokee, you're probably part African American. It more than 50% likely, way more in some cases, if you, depending on what statistics you look at. And we erase that from our context as well. It's a habit that this country fosters. It's worked really well for the people in power to separate people one from the other. It's not useful. It needs to be discarded. It's only useful for a few people. It's not good for anybody else. And it doesn't give you a complete story, which is just horrible. Anyway, it allows for a lot of oppression that ends up being invisible from one group to the next. So we don't really understand one another's struggles very well, because all of these erasures create these boundaries in between us, and then we can't really see. We're not one another's problems. The problem is the system, and that's where the adjustments need to be made. I mean, one of the projects I'm working on right now is called Manifest Differently, and it's a couple of curators in San Francisco, Tricia Lagasso, Megan Wilson, and myself, putting together what is basically a giant conversation between a lot of people from a lot of different communities, artists and poets. It's 40, I think it's 19 artists and 19 poets. And we're doing shows all over San Francisco in different combinations in order to discuss what the whole underpinning of Manifest Destiny has been, the doctrine of discovery, and how it's managed to erase a lot of people, you know, so.
Do you think that, no, go ahead.
Yeah. No, and to mislead us about what our history is. I mean, your last guest was from Florida. That's just the most obvious circumstance of erasing and rewriting history, but it's there, and it's part of the foundational lie that just permeates the place we live.
Yeah, what was I going to ask you? Do you think that all of this sort of, I guess it's a trend or a new tradition of like land acknowledgement and those kinds of measures that folks are taking, do you think it's helpful? Does it make a difference?
I think a land acknowledgement is important, but I think that it really quickly becomes another box we have to tick in order to that we're not taking it in to quite as deeply as we have to in order to really make a difference.
Okay,
you know?
so break that down. Like why is it helpful, and in what way is it just a box? I mean, I guess not in what way is it just a box. Why is it helpful, and how could it go deeper? How could we take it in a real way?
Well, I think we have to think about what it means to be endemic to a place, right? The whole European in colonization, continued colonization of the Western Hemisphere is based not in a desire to be in the Western Hemisphere, but a desire to have more Europe, right? So, you know, so there's all these small things like, well, let's just import all the birds from Shakespeare's sonnets, right? Rather than noticing that there are birds here. Maybe those birds operate within, you know, some kind of ecological niche that needs to be allowed to continue to do it, right? Down to let's if you don't qualify as human for us in whatever the rubric is, then we can just have your stuff and move you out. The point being, I guess, that each indigenous community culture has evolved in a place alongside everything else that's there, right? So Plains people have evolved with buffalo, right? My people, the Eastern folks, have evolved with certain trees and animals and stuff, right? And we have all these stories about it, which are a catalog of how these things behave, what they can be expected to do, and language is that as well. It's sort of packed seeds of information that aren't necessarily immediately obvious. So when you do a land acknowledgement, it really to take it in on a deeper level and say, okay, these people have managed to live in this place without ruining the whole thing for however many years, and they understand where they are. They understand, what the weather is, and although that's changing for sure, there's knowledge there. It's a knowledge base. It's not just you're living in somebody else's house, which it also is, but it's there's an information base that's
Talking with poet, artist, and yes, MC. We'll talk about that. Kim Shuck, continuing the conversation after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. 2 former leaders of the right-wing Proud Boys will be sentenced today for seditious conspiracy for their roles in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Federal prosecutors are asking that former Proud Boys chairman Enrique Tarrio be sentenced to 33 years in prison and co-defendant Ethan Nordine be sentenced to 27 years for trying to stop Congress from certifying Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 presidential election. Coolidge Ball, the first black student athlete to be enrolled at the University of Mississippi, has died. The announcement was made Tuesday by University Chancellor Glenn Boyce, who called Ball a pioneer and trailblazer whose courage helped to open the doors for countless other student athletes at Ole Miss. Ball was 71. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. The cash back from trips, restaurants, all doubled. Seriously, though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
Is this the tether? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. We should start preparing ourselves for a goodbye message from tennis legend Venus Williams. The 43-year-old Compton native appears to be in the final phase of her historic career. For the third straight year, Venus was eliminated in the first round of the U.S. Open. She lost in 2 sets Monday night to Greet Menin of Belgium. Before this recent losing streak, Venus was 21-0 in the first round in the U.S. Open. She won 2 of her 7 Grand Slam titles at the Open, but it looks like time and a fragile knee are catching up to her. Even in defeat, a sellout crowd at Arthur Ashe Stadium gave Venus a standing ovation as she left the court. The Dodgers had 16 hits in their win last night over Arizona. They got home runs from Will Smith and Mookie Betts. Betts' homer was his 36th this season, a career high. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
Support comes from Getty, presenting The Gospel at Colonus, a theatrical event under the stars that reimagines the story of Oedipus. Blending Greek myth with Black spiritual practice, the show follows the blinded Oedipus as he seeks redemption after a lifetime of tragedy. Co-produced by Court Theater, conceived and adapted by Lee Brewer, with music composed by Bob Telson. Thursdays through Saturdays this September at the Getty Villa Museum. Tickets available now at getty.edu.
MC Light, or AARP, hip-hop, the cultural phenomenon that took New York by storm in 1973, is celebrating 50 years of rocking mics and crowds. Whether you're a ride-or-die hip-hop head or simply curious about its origins, check out the latest issue of AARP the magazine. It celebrates this incredible milestone with a featured story brimming with fun hip-hop facts and history. Head over to aarp.org/black community to learn more.
Community is more than where you live. It's the people in it who go above and beyond to help it thrive. During the 50th anniversary of hip-hop and the 75th anniversary of Black Radio, AARP recognizes the members, volunteers, people, and partners giving back to our communities. We believe when our efforts drive change for the greater good, we all thrive together. To learn more about how AARP supports efforts to keep our communities thriving, visit aarp.org/black community.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
And I'm glad you are here. You're welcome to join the conversation, 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580, talking with widely published poet, essayist, weaver, beadworker, activist Kim Shuck, former poet laureate of San Francisco. And we were talking about, these ideas of how the ancestors show up, how we honor them, or how they speak out through us in the work. All of the ancestors, the ones we look like, and the ones that are just in the DNA. And you were talking about this idea of land acknowledgement. I mean, as interesting as you said, people want to talk to you about your Polish side, they want to talk to you about your Cherokee side, but you feel like you're very grounded in San Francisco, which makes sense since you were the poet laureate of that place. But part of that place, at least from my understanding of it or my being raised there, is activism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me about this idea of even being a poet laureate and being of that San Francisco kind of tradition.
Okay.
If you want.
Yeah. I'm just getting, I got this very strong picture of the whole digger scene when I was a kid, and then also you'd go downtown and there'd be these women, in order to go downtown, they'd have gloved up and hatted up, and they'd be dressed in a certain way. The city's been a site of contradiction for a long time. So there's the activist side of it, and then there's definitely this sort of provincial desire to be, the model limits.
I mean, you're right. It's a very dressy city in some ways. It's much more East Coasty than L.A. And at the same time, diggers, for folks who don't know what that is, explain what diggers are.
The diggers were a group of people who basically seriously embraced a lot of back to the earth and a lot of the community-oriented impulse of the 60s. And I remember there was the free store. There was a lot of baking bread with reclaimed fruit and stuff. Do you remember? This is one a lot of people don't remember. Do you remember the whole baking bread on the sidewalk in the coffee can?
No, I do not remember that. Which is weird because probably not if it was San Francisco. But all of those influences, those threads are definitely there, of course, in my upbringing. Sure. I just don't remember that specific one.
Yeah, there were all these experiments with alternative ways of being, and the diggers, although they were different from year to year in terms of the effectiveness of it, but there was a certain mutual care thing that was going on, as well. well as the politics thing. So, you know, it's, I had my grandmother was also from San Francisco, and so we'd get dressed up and go buy back to school shoes and downtown, and then, you know, have a special lunch, and she always had her gloves and her hat and all of that. And then I'd come home and co-op nursery school and you know, unfiltered apple juice and carob things and like that. There's a sort of experimental vibe in San Francisco that I think continues and thrives. You know, and it didn't stop with the 70s. There was, you know, the punk stuff, and it's been a through line throughout the whole thing. What's the expression? How are you finding self? How are you finding self in community? So there's always it's not an accident that a lot of things that people might seem fairly radical, to some people might seem fairly radical about politics, end up finding a home in the breasts of San Franciscans, although that's changing a bit because we are still trying to masticate that enormous bolus of human beings that came in. About, I think, what was it, like 100,000 people moved to San Francisco over the last 15 years or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like this huge influx of people.
And a lot of that is the whole tech boom, right? That sort of came and somewhat went. I mean,
yeah, it comes and goes.
Okay.
It's done it twice, right? There was the .com thing, and now there's sort of the social media thing, which seems to be, you know, not as prevalent as it was. It's sort of going downhill now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I know that a lot of folks don't have to work where they live anymore, so people have moved all kinds of places. But I know it's not, you know, the instinct of you. I know you're a poet and an artist, and so being all about self-promotion and my brand may not be what you do, but you know, people are interested. What's that journey from saying, okay, I have no choice, I'm going to be a poet, to, you know, being a poet laureate and you know, publishing, well, I think you must be up to more than 10 books by now.
Well, it's 10, it's almost 11, like any minute now.
Right, one's coming out this fall, right?
Yeah, but there's also, at the same time, almost perfectly balanced, I've also edited 10 anthologies. So for me, it never varied from the community focus as well. I started a Native American poetry reading series in San Francisco in order to have a place to read, untranslated, you know, like having the emotions untranslated, having the feelings untranslated, not having to tell people what I meant, right? And that went for a few years, and then I was running one at the old Modern Times bookstore for I think it was a couple of years. We did that. And sometime in that time frame, somebody told me, I had a dream you became this poet laureate of San Francisco, and it was at a opening for a book, and I almost snorted my juice out my nose because I thought it was so funny. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Right. Me, poet laureate. That's hilarious. And then the Haight-Ashbury Journal nominated me, and this little cohort of people who'd read at my open mic went around the city with nomination forms and encouraged people to nominate me. And I've been told by a couple of different people that I had the most nominations that anybody ever had for being poet laureate.
I love that. That's awesome.
But the only reason, and I wasn't one of them, by the way, because I just thought it was a lark. You know, people are like, oh, you serve if you get named laureate. I'm like, oh, yeah. If they appoint me laureate, I'll do it, you know. And I just thought it was really funny. And then I get this phone call from Ed Lee, the mayor. And it's like, well, are you willing to do this? It's like, sure, I can do this. And so that's how that happened. Really was just, I needed a place to do my thing. That meant making a place for other people to do their thing too. It wasn't entirely selfish. I wanted to be in a community of people who were doing this. And then for a while there, I was running 5 series. So there'd be at least 5 readings a month that I was booking and organizing.
Wow.
Which, when I was Poet Laureate, it's not that way anymore. I basically kept telling them, you need to pay people more to do this gig, and they did pay Tongo more, who is the current Poet Laureate.
Tongo Eisenmartin,
but when I was doing it, it was $5,000 for however long you ended up doing it. So they gave you
just like a lump sum.
Weird honor.
You can be Poet Laureate for 20 years. You get the same check. That's crazy.
Exactly. It was a big check for me, but people kept going, oh, well, how much did you get paid? I'm like, well, basically, if you spread it out for all of the readings, for every other reading, I can have either a cup of tea or parking.
I'm laughing, but that's bad. Kim Shuck is my guest. When we come forward and find out what a Poet Laureate exactly does and what it takes to be a poet, and maybe you'll be in the mood to read us one of your poems. That would be awesome. Talking with Kim Shuck, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
Did you know addiction to drugs like meth or cocaine is a disease and not a choice? But getting help is. If you have stimulant use disorder, you, your family, and friends may have a lot of questions, including where to start. Choose Change California can help. Make a change today and find a proven treatment option for you at choosechangeca.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lakey and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and, they're putting their money where their mouth is at, So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community. And, you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase and, give them, another look if I go to another institution. I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right. Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
Now. We tend not to think about now. We dream about tomorrow, relive yesterday. But right now in front of us is victory over cancer. Right now, cancer research funded by the V Foundation is leading to better treatments and saving lives. Victory over cancer is there for the taking by you, because today's cancer research is tomorrow's victory. Learn more at v.org.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. KBLA Talk 1580 is inviting you to join us on Saturday, September 16th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for our very first economic empowerment event for the community. This event is free and is powered by Caltrans. We're doing this in association with Rambo House, and here's Rambo to tell you more.
Contracts. I'm going to say it again for all of us small business owners out there. Contracts. Rambo House, KBLA, Tavis, me. Oh my God, this is going to be massive. I truly thank Caltrans for giving us the opportunity to focus on contracts. Listen, that's what it's all about to be a small business in LA. That's how we hire our own. That's how we expand our community is contracts. KBLA1580.com is for you to have a seat at our contracts-focused event. Contract Ready does it again. We had over 900 last time. So you guys know how exciting this is. And if you just think that you want to get into contracts and you're close to it, bring your friends out for September 16th at the Marriott Hotel. Listen, you know where to register. KBLA1580.com. Come see me. I can't wait to see you. Let's do it, Tavis.
So be sure to go to KBLA1580.com for all the details. We'll see you Saturday, September 16th.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
We are talking with Kim Shuck. She is widely published in journals, anthologies, solo books, and is also a fine artist doing weavings, beadwork, and more. Kim Shuck, what exactly does the very not so high paid job of poet laureate actually do?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are traditions about commemorating things in verse, so important social events. I did very little of that. I ended up being the laureate during the lockdown, the COVID lockdown. A lot of the commemoration that I've done, unfortunately, is of people, many of whom I loved, who were poets in the Bay Area who passed during COVID, or not, maybe not even because of it, but as part of that thing. So that's one of the things that one ends up doing. I ended up writing a poem for one of the Tuskegee Airmen as well, who was also Cherokee and wanted a Cherokee person to write the poem. That was before I became laureate, and they had turned down the then poet laureate of the country because they wanted it. So no pressure, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did we do? I thought my job was to tend and encourage young poets, to support elder poets who might be coming to it late, to support the people who did this as work for a lot of their lives. So I organized a lot of readings. That's what I did. I also did a poem of the day thing for the San Francisco Public Library. If people are tempted to do to post a poem of the day, either start out with 6 months lined up ahead of time, or don't do it.
It's a lot harder than it sounds, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it totally is. What else? I don't know what else I did. I was at a lot of things.
Yeah, right. A ceremonial function. Right, absolutely.
Which, I'm not that chick. I feel like other laureates have done that with more grace than I did. I'm like, really, I've got to get up and seriously. And at one point, I was asked if I had a more glamorous photograph of myself. I was like, I'll even let you take one because I can clean up pretty good, but only if you ever asked Jack Hirschman for a more glamorous photo. So
what? And I'm pretty sure the answer to that question is no, they didn't. No, they
never got back to me.
Say, can you get scruffier for the photo? Because we want you to look like a real poet. We're talking with Kim Shuck, former poet laureate Kim Shuck. Perhaps she'll grace us with some verse before we leave the building. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup.
And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay. Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for the Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job paid training, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus are now even putting their money in your pocket with a one-time $2,500 sign-on bonus. Let us connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in your community, then we invite you to join the team. Start your journey by submitting an application at culvercity.org/job. For more information, visit culvercitybus.com or call the live customer service operator at 310-253-6500. Again, 350-253-6500.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
And we're talking with poet Kim Shuck. You can find out more at kimshuck.com. Simple, kimshuck.com. Hoping you will agree to share a poem with us this morning, Kim.
I'm delighted.
Awesome.
The city forest. Okay. The city forest isn't a sculpture. It's a sculpture. Self-assembling and falling apart and taken apart and sold at distance and used as symbol. A machine, a meat grinder, a sidewalk household, facades that tell stories from other times, and the new stories that carry no weight as symbol at all. Some but not all are neighbors, and the sculpture is unquiet. The clicking and quiet singing runs all the way through all of the hours, and the visionaries have developed a way of telling the future by reading the lights on the windows on the hillside. Sing to me louder. I may love you forever, like the strange whimsy that wanders these hills with model train sets, the secret belief in genocide hand in hand with commerce, the threat of an untied rope, a rope made of braids cut from mocked men and women, stolen from themselves, stolen from the hills, with the gold and that comforting smell of sun-warmed wildflowers and hidden water and hiding water and objects resentfully renamed. The city isn't a sculpture, it's a sculpture, the only perpetual motion machine that works, heartbroken and smug and struggling in joy, knowing that it's important to pick a side, a face of the polyhedron, perched on toes by the Pacific. Say the names of the villages that were, the lakes that are, the lakes that curl wishing under the schools and old churches, along with salamanders and bunchgrass. Say the names of the toes of the shoeless who lick this peninsula into a mammal, a sculpture, the misdrawn and misunderstood coastal sage, and the quiet overlooked bats. The city isn't a sculpture, walls rebarred with bones, bones of stickleback and hopeful invasion. The city is self-aware. The city is a sculpture. The city is afraid of inconsequence, of the ghost ships that soak in memory of the bay, of hillsides that seep in the wet months, of stands of trees and the latest import plants. The city crawls with intention, and coyotes and coy dogs and lap dogs and rats that feed on excellent garbage. The city isn't a sculpture.
Wow, thank you for that, Kim. I love that. It's it's a great way to start a day kind of poem. We just have about a minute or so left before we hand the mic off to Mr. Tavis Smiley, whose show comes on after mine every single day. What thought, what idea, what do you want to leave us with this morning?
Keep creating.
Yeah. Poet, might not be the thing your parents push you into, but but they all, every generation does have poets, so there must be something about it that, that keeps drawing people in.
Yeah, it's good trouble.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the conversation, the good trouble, and of course the message. Keep creating. You said a couple things that I wrote down today, so I definitely will keep creating, and we thank you for your inspiration on that. It is almost time for Tavis Smiley, but again, I would urge you to stop by and check out kimshuck.com while you're surfing things on the internet. You can go to KBLA 1580. You can find this show if you missed today's conversation. You want to hear it in its entirety. It's on YouTube, youtube.com, KBLA 1580. All of our podcasts live there. And you can also find these conversations wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on your phone with the KBLA 1580 app. Today's show has been brought to you by Wealth Management Financial Advisors that can help you get your taxes together, help you get your finances together, whatever shape they might be in, whether you're an individual or a nonprofit organization or a business. Visit them at wealthmanagementlb.com. I'm Dominique DePrima. I'll see you on social media, KBLA 1580, on all of the platforms. And I'm there at DePrima Radio, DIPRIMA, then radio. Please like, follow, and all those things because that helps keep us strong. History is now, and we are making it together. I'm Dominique DePrima. Until tomorrow, be safe, be well, be creative. One.